Welcome, I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics, our monthly show on politics and public policy here in the Valley. Today, Barbara Marshman, the editor of the editorial page of the Mercury News, will explain how she and her colleagues develop positions on issues and recommendations of candidates. Then, instead of our community news and Where Are They Now segments, we'll have something completely different for you, so stay tuned. That's what's coming up on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Barbara Marshman. Thanks for being here. Let's start by having you tell us what your job is as editor of the editorial page of the Mercury News.
Well, it is, there are two pages in the paper most days that are, one has the editorial, cartoon letters, and usually a local column, and the other will have some wire op-eds, some syndicated op-eds, and those are my two pages, and I'm in charge of I and two other people do the writing of the editorials, sometimes columns, but we are, as a group, responsible for choosing that material, curating the letters, if you will, and putting it all together every day, and getting things online at good times so that they will get attention online.
And basically, those two pages are the opinion pages.
They are the opinion pages,
as opposed to the news pages.
The news pages,
so,
and that is hard now. I mean, it's all become so blurred. At one time, when I started in this business, 40 years ago, there was a distinction. Now it's harder to explain. But the editorials are still presented as the position of the institution.
The newspaper.
Of the newspaper.
Not Barbara Marshman.
Not Barbara Marshman.
Even though Barbara Marshman writes
a lot of them and agrees with all of them.
But it's the institutional, and you agree with all of them.
Well, if I didn't agree with them, I wouldn't be in my pages.
So how long have you been at the Merc?
I've been at it will be 30 years this summer. Yeah.
So you've seen big changes there over time.
I have seen huge changes, yes.
From a much fatter newspaper.
A much fatter newspaper. When I arrived, I came there from a John S. Knight Fellowship at Stanford. I come from a small town in Pennsylvania, spent a year out here and didn't want to go back, so
that happens to a lot of us.
Yes, it does. And when I arrived, the paper had just not long earlier won the Pulitzer for the Philippines. So its star was rising, and then we won again for the '89 earthquake. Yeah. And David Yarnold and some, Larry Jinks as publisher, David Yarnold and some other editors really built up the paper. And when I got there, I started on the editorial board, and there were, I think, 9 people, including copy editors.
Just on the editorial board?
Just on the editorial board.
Just for those 2 pages?
Just for well, at that time it was 2 pages every weekday, and really, we only had 2 pages in the Sunday as well, because at that time we didn't have the whole, somebody else was doing the perspective section. But we used to publish 3 editorials a day. On all different topics.
And now you're down to 3, staff of 3, basically, right?
Basically, 2 in San Jose, and then Dan Borenstein, Ed Clendaniel is my assistant in San Jose, and then Daniel Borenstein is the editor of the East Bay Times. Yeah, the Mercury News is part of the Bay Area News Group now, though, so that's several other newspapers, and you share editorials sometimes, right? We do. We work together now. We have to, because there are so few of us. Yeah. We don't agree on everything, though. East Bay is a little more conservative. That's actually less the case now that Dan Borenstein is the editor. The previous editor is retired, and they didn't replace him. So it has really forced Dan and me and Ed to work together and plan things. So that we try to plan a certain number of editorials a week that we can share. And then anything that's, very local here, very geared towards San Jose, they will have something about Walnut Creek or Richmond or Oakland isn't of interest.
So
here.
how do you decide what to write about, and who makes the decision?
We do. We pretty much make them. Neil Chase, the editor, and Sharon Ryan, the publisher of the Bay Area News Group, both are part of the editorial board and can weigh in and will sit in on like interviews of mayoral candidates, or if the governor comes down or something, they will participate. As it happens, they pretty much feel comfortable with our judgment. I mean, I've been there a long time and shifted on some things, but after a while, you don't know what you're going to say about everything that happens, but you know the universe you're coming from. You know some general values that we've established, and so when there's a city council vote on something, generally there has been some precedent for it, and you either kind of go with that or explain why you're not going with that. So we get together. We call on Mondays usually and talk about the week and try to have a plan through the following Monday. But of course, things happen. I won't use the president's vocabulary. I'll just say things happen.
Yeah.
And we often, we're ready to switch gears whenever we need to.
So some of it is actually generated by events that are, all of it's really generated by events.
Yeah, or it could be things that, we've been looking at for a while, and they'll, Dan Borenstein in the East Bay often, he was a reporter for a long time at the state and in the East Bay, and so he will sometimes break news. And sometimes we do too. Sometimes we'll write something in an editorial.
It used to happen more when you had 9 people on staff.
It happened a lot then, and in fact, the newsroom used to be angry at us most of the time. And now, when we get something, I'll tell them about it, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm so glad you're doing that because I don't have anyone to put on that today." But when we are presenting it, we're always presenting it with opinion. So. It's
as
a
opposed
little,
to the way the news is
as opposed to the way the news is supposed to be presented. Yes.
Yeah. So you sort of brainstorm at the beginning of the week. These are the things. This is what's coming up. This is what I think we ought to be writing about.
The net neutrality vote is this Thursday. The FCC meeting. We should write about that again. We just today in the afternoon got a note. We've never been fans of the twin tunnels. In fact, I was very proud at the last.
This is for construction of BART to downtown.
No, actually, this is that's something.
It's the Delta. It's the Delta.
This is the Delta. Yes, Jerry Brown's twin.
You've been grinding that axe for years.
Yeah, we have, and I was so proud at the Water District hearing when they were going to vote on whether to support it or not. People had actually Xeroxed our editorial and were passing it out. It was great. And he has, as of this afternoon, come down to a 1-tunnel plan. So we know first thing next week. It was too late in the day for us to scramble and get anything together on it. It's just a vague idea. But that's something that will probably be in the paper next Tuesday.
So there's some things you sort of campaign on long term.
Yes.
Like the Delta tunnels.
The Delta tunnels.
Some things that are just
net
they
neutrality,
come up and they
some
go,
just come up.
It's Salvadoran refugees or.
Already written about a ballot measure in June, the proposed development in Evergreen.
The Evergreen development.
Which
you'll probably write again about
we
that.
don't like. And yes, we will write again about that.
Yeah.
And maybe, columns. That's something that'll be kind of a campaign.
Has the publisher ever sort of reined you in and said enough?
This publisher has not.
Yeah. Of course, in the bad old days, Joe Ritter. This is back to the 50s.
That was way before my time.
I know it's way before your time.
Yes, Joe Ritter was very conservative, and by the time I got to the Mercury News, there was. In fact, I replaced the person who had been the last one on the editorial board, who had been there when Joe Ritter was publisher. So I never met any of the Ritter people. He was very conservative. He was very pro-growth.
Yeah.
He had many issues. You had to catch him before noon to chat with Joe because he kind of hitting the liquor cabinet by then. But it that's well known. I'm not.
Yes, I know.
That's extremely well known. So that was a very different situation.
Yeah.
And Larry Jinks had been editor
and then publisher,
and then publisher later, which was great. Larry was wonderful to work with, and there were times when Larry actually disagreed, but agreed not to interfere. Mm-hmm. I remember when we recommended Barbara Boxer over, I'm going to forget the name of the man who ran against her, but he was sort of the establishment handsome white guy candidate, and not even the editor of the editorial pages, Rob Elder, liked Barbara Boxer, but the rest of us all thought it's time to do this.
Yeah,
you need a rabble rouser.
This is 1992, I think.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it was, and both Larry, the publisher, and Rob Elder, who was editor at the time, said, "Okay, you know." We went
this is
with
a little
consensus.
aside, but
yes.
speaking of 1992, that was called the Year of the Women, because California elected 2 women, and a lot of other women got elected nationally. Do you think 2018 is going to be another Year of the Women?
You know, I hope so. I worry, and I have to write about this in the next few weeks. I got sidelined before the holidays, but we have had these waves before, and I had forgotten about 92. I'm glad you mentioned it. I have a fear that what is happening now is mostly high-profile situations, either famous companies or famous men behaving badly, or, you know, famous women speaking out. And so much of what goes on is with the store clerks getting pressured by a manager, the people who really need jobs, probably mostly women in the position, mostly, you know, really need their jobs and still are going to have a hard time standing up.
Well, to the credit of some of the Hollywood women, they've formed the Time's Up movement and already set aside $15 million to help people like the ones you're talking about.
And I
with
hope,
lawsuits.
I hope
it's going to need more than that, and it's going to need more than lawsuits, but that's something. But I meant, do you think there's going to be a wave of women elected in 2018?
It seems to be
lots more
starting
women candidates.
Lots more women candidates, and in Virginia, women, more women won, I believe, in the state legislature. It's looking that way, and there are a couple of organizations now working to get more women running.
Emily's list says they've had thousands more women inquiring about opportunities to run.
Yes, I think that might be, you know, one of the few good things that happened with the Trump presidency. Women really realized they needed to.
And the next Women's March just happened in January here in San Jose. We're in February, remember?
Yes. Sorry. Yes, I will have gone to that.
Yes, me too. So, speaking of candidates, how does the Mercury News, how does the editorial board decide what candidates to recommend?
Well, we used to interview just about everybody for every race in the county that, you know, I mean, and now we've had to pare back. We try to pick, because we have fewer people to do the interviews, we try to pick, say, there are 1 or 2 school boards that have really critical races, like Alum Rock has been such a disaster, and we definitely have to. We interview the candidates, sometimes omitting someone who really isn't serious or is a sort of faux candidate. But we try to interview everyone, usually in groups, just because we have to, and also because it's good to play people against each other. And then we don't just do the interview. We also, because some people present very well, and then you make a few phone calls and you find out they're very strange people, or the opposite. They don't come off well at all in the interview, but people we trust tell us, no, that's a really good guy or woman, and we just have to weigh all that. It's hard with fewer people. We have to do more independent research, but we will still talk it through and explain to each other how we're feeling about them, what we think should happen. And so it's not just one person saying, I like so-and-so. You've put more objective research into it.
You talk to the beat reporter that's covering the race?
Yeah, usually if someone is seriously covering the race. In a lot of the smaller races, we no longer have a reporter dedicated to them. But certainly for anyone covering the city council races, we would talk to them if they have any impressions. We try to make it very clear that the beat reporter is not part of the process. Yeah. But sometimes they can tell us just objective things that they observe. We invite them to sit in on the interviews.
Last election, you posted the interviews, the videos of the interviews.
We have done that,
which
yes.
I don't want to say I enjoyed it, but I was interested to watch some of them.
You know, it was a huge amount of work to do that, because you can't just do a video and post it. I mean, you have to do some work on it, and some of them got 15 views, which is not very good. Some of them, we would probably still do a mayor, we'd do, governors, things like that. But we didn't. One year we did, dozens, and not going to do that again until we have a much more robust producer staff.
One of the things I hear from my union friends is that the Mercury News is distinctly not union friendly, rarely endorses union-supported candidates, been very critical of public employee pensions and union requirements for public projects. What's your response to that?
Well, I would love to introduce them to my conservative forum friends who constantly tell us that we're left-wing idiots and all we publish are, pro-tax, pro-Obama, we're all, because I think all of us there are pretty much liberal. We do have a concern about, I would say, the power of public employee unions to control city councils, board of supervisors. We do have a concern about pensions because, I don't see how that's going to work, particularly the public safety pensions. I think there's going to come a day when they can't do, you're not allowed to pull back on a prompt. You can increase the pension anytime, but you can never say, that was a mistake. We just can't do that. You can't, unless the courts, rule otherwise.
Which
that is in the court now.
In process.
It's in process.
Not the ruling, but the hearing.
The hearings are in process.
We'll see what the ruling is.
Yeah, and I have no idea how that'll go. But if you can't do it, I think there's going to be some trouble. We do, we recommended twice for city council, Ash Kalra. Recommended last time, same district, Sergio Menez, who the Chamber of Commerce attacked for some things he'd done when he was a kid.
They were really mean.
They were really mean, and we wrote a separate editorial coming to Sergio's defense because we think he's a good guy. And there are other folks that we, but people don't remember we did not recommend Johnny Camus, the sort of biggest Republican on the council now. We recommended Robert Braunstein, who lost the race, but he was the labor guy.
What are the key races you expect to be looking at in the 2018 election coming up to June?
Well, certainly San Jose City Council and mayor, if there's a mayor's race. And perhaps by the time this airs, we'll know if Mike Honda is going to run. I think
we'll know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone high profile running, we'll put some energy into that race to look at people. If it's a pro forma race, we'll just probably write one recommendation. We've generally supported Sam's path, so unless somebody...
Mayor, city council, a couple of council seats.
Yes, there are, I think, 3 council seats, and we will look at all of those.
There are 5 up, but
there are 5 up, but I think
incumbents.
there are 3, there are...
3 will probably be contested.
3 contested, it's my last. And then there's 1 supervisor. There are 2 races up, but Ken Yeager retiring.
Yeah, a very crucial seat on the board.
Crucial seat, yes, because when you win that, you're probably in for 12 years, so it's important to try to get it right out of the gate.
Barbara, we're down to about 1 minute, But
oh, no.
Yeah. But I want to, well, and oh no. But I want to ask you for a book or movie recommendation. What are you reading? What have you seen lately that you recommend to other people?
You know, when I'm particularly kind of in times of stress, my go-to for relaxation is sometimes trash mysteries, but ideally I'll find a mystery series that I think is really wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm currently hooked on Louise Penny, who writes a series. I can't remember now the label of it, but it is a detective in Quebec who keeps getting involved in things in this small town that's part of the and you get to know all of the people in this small town. You by the third book you're wondering, oh, when am I going to see so and what they're doing now?
Yeah.
It's great fun. Just the best mystery writer.
It's a great diversion. Thanks for the recommendation. Thanks for being with us today. It was fun talking to you.
Thank you. It was fun.
Next, instead of our usual community news and Where Are They Now features, we're presenting a 7-minute video on a community-generated project that could create a grand central park for San Jose and link the entire network of trails in the valley. Let's take a look.
Welcome to Coyote Meadows, our name for a proposed new park on 50 acres of undeveloped city-owned land. The Coyote Meadows Coalition, a group of local volunteers, has been holding community workshops and giving on-site tours to collect ideas, thanks to a grant from the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. This video shows off the site and some of the ideas. Coyote Meadows is close to downtown on the Coyote Creek between Story Road and I-280. Coyote Meadows connects with neighboring Olander and Kelly Parks, which, taken together, could become a grand park. Coyote Meadows will be a key segment of the Coyote Creek Trail, which will run from Morgan Hill to Fremont. Coyote Meadows is also at the junction of the Three Creeks Trail and the Five Wounds Trail, which will connect to BART and also will help the Bay Area Ridge Trail bypass a challenging stretch of the Coyote. Coyote Meadows is bounded by a freeway, a roadway embankment, and neighboring development, so vehicle access to the site is limited. There are, however, a number of existing and potential trail access points. Coyote Meadows has several defining features: the Coyote Creek, an array of radio antenna towers, the grade of the Western Pacific Railroad, including an old wooden train trestle, and a large capped landfill on what had once been the clay pit for the Rimillard Brickyard. These features create a number of distinct zones within the park, each with its own set of constraints and its own possibilities and opportunities. The Coyote Creek runs the length and width of the site. Most of the year, the Coyote is a small stream, shallow enough to cross on stepping stones, but it can also become quite wide and deep during heavy rains. The creek is lined with riparian habitat, the natural vegetation native along our local streams and creeks that is so important to our local native fish and wildlife. Riparian corridors are sensitive habitats that need to be respected and protected. The riparian habitat includes a large expanse of lowlands near Story Road. This area is somewhat isolated below the grade of the adjacent street and thus out of sight. It became home to a large encampment of the homeless. The residents caused extensive damage to the environment, and most have now been moved to transitional housing. Proper public activation of the area can help discourage their return. Possibilities could include nature trails and picnic areas, or maybe summer day camps. Perhaps this area could be better connected to Kelly Park by trail or walkway to enable an expansion of the nearby Happy Hollow Zoo. The city's plans for the Coyote Creek Trail are to cross Story Road at grade at a signalized intersection, and then will run along the creek along an existing service road outside of any sensitive habitat. Heading west and north, the trail will cross beneath the Coyote Creek Trestle, which once carried to market the fruit and canned goods from the Valley of Heart's Delight. The trestle was built by Western Pacific in the 1920s and is 260 feet long and 35 feet tall. Following the Creek Trail north brings us to the second major park feature, an array of radio towers. These towers are on land leased from the city, and the lease expires in about 1 year. The antennas serve a local community, and relocating the towers would be problematical. Their placement has been optimized for their federally granted service area. The towers themselves are not a problem, but their supporting guy wires are. The station owners have offered to replace the towers with self-supporting unipoles with no guy wires. The land around the antennas does flood on occasion, but it could be used for various passive issues, Tai Chi perhaps, or a nature or cultural garden. If we can get an easement from the Santa Clara Valley Water District, we could have a bike pedestrian bridge cross from 12th Street and Martha to here, thereby giving park access to the nearby residents of Spartan Keys. The former Western Pacific Railroad is the third defining feature of the park. Starting at the corner of Story and Center Roads, there is nearly an acre of solid flat land there, one of the few areas readily accessible to public vehicles, a great entrance and parking area. The eastern edge of this area has a bluff overlooking the riparian lowlands, perhaps a site for a visitor center with restrooms and an overlook. Following the former tracks north, we cross over the Coyote Creek Trestle, which is readily adaptable to provide trail access to the park and connectivity to the trail network. Just north of the trestle, a trail down the slope provides connection to the Coyote Creek Trail below. Continuing north, the future Five Woods Trail could weave or run straight and level along the former railroad grade, above the flood-prone antenna array and beneath the towering landfill. At the northern edge, the freeway has an overcrossing for the former railroad and rail sidings. This is a large and unique area sheltered beneath 10 lanes of traffic, a location perhaps for a skateboard park or remote control vehicle racing. Any noise would be masked by the freeway overhead. The fourth main park feature is the former landfill, 40 feet high and over a third of a mile long. The landfill does have its challenges, but it also offers some great opportunities. It has great views of downtown, and it has great visibility from the freeway. Besides being an overlook of downtown, perhaps it could become a sculpture garden. Perhaps the Art Commission could curate a display of Burning Man artwork, or maybe recreate San Jose's famous light tower here. And then there's the edge of the landfill. Most of San Jose parks are flat, but the ledgefill edge has an impressive slope. A number of possibilities have been suggested, including stairways for climbing. Get your exercise without disturbing the residents of Communication Hill. Slides and large climbing structures built right into the sides of the slope. A BMX or dirt bike circuit course around the perimeter, serpentining up and down the slopes as it circles the landfill. Maybe even a zip line. The site has a history as well. It was once the Remillard brickyard, and the landfill is now where the clay for the bricks was once mined. The nearby Ashworth Remillard house on Story Road was the family home. Maybe we can connect the historic house in the narrative of Coyote Meadows. We have collected a wealth of other ideas as well. This video was designed to give you a quick overview of the site and to suggest a few of the possibilities. For more information, please see www.coyotemeadowssj.org. Thank you.
Robert Brownstein was our narrator, and Larry Ames wrote and produced this overview of the Coyote Meadows project. We'll be back next month with San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo reporting on the state of the city. Meanwhile, you can catch up on previous shows on our website at createtvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for Create TV San Jose. And you can let us know what you think about our show and suggest future topics or guests by email at valleypolitics@createtvsj.org, on Twitter at @valley_politics, and by following us on Facebook. And now that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics today. See you next time.